Okay, so I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at some of the documents on the website that were there for historical information. They're helpful in just tracing some of the history.
Elaine,
Yeah,
can you clarify which website? I apologize
that's okay.
that you're,
The Repairs of the Breach website.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll stick that.
I thought maybe you were also referencing something on an Islam website when you were talking to Jackie.
Oh, no.
So, okay,
Yeah,
no,
same,
no
same.
problem. I just want to be sure that I'm on the same page.
Yeah. Same, I just sent the actual page that it's on the Islam page. And there are still 3 files. I think Christine was going to help me with that, but don't have those 3 files up there yet. But we'll get it figured out so that they'll be up there. But they were the Egyptian expedition, I think that's what it's called, something like that. There's 3 of them together. It was the Egyptian expedition, I think, and then the Syrian war. There's 2 of them. One was 1831 to 33, and one of them is 1839 to 1841. And so with that, we'll kind of start working on a little bit on the board. Does anybody have any thoughts since we talked about all this last time? Anybody at all? We'll review and then kind of try to keep going forward. That puts it up there. Yeah, you can see it. Okay. So this was the board that we worked on, I think last time. And the flip side, I believe, is got all the little pieces on it. So we might bounce around a little bit. But just to review, we're looking at trying to review this history here, the Millerite history, and then also I want to go back and review the first and second. Well, we won't do it all tonight. We're going to try to just do it interactive with all of us from things that we might each remember. But in the history here, 1798, at the time of the end, we were looking at Josiah Litch. There's a video, I think I shared it with a couple of people, but Susan, I think I shared that one with you. If you could put that one in the chat. And I don't remember if I shared it with somebody else. So I'm trying to
Which one, Elaine? I'm was looking for something else to add to this, but
the one that says damaging ignorance, I think, of 9/11, something like that.
I'll look in my WhatsApp because
yeah, and what's up?
Okay, I'll look.
What we were looking at and talking about was Josiah Litch's version of the King of the North and the King of the South in Daniel 11:40, the verse itself, Daniel 11:40. And I should have started this different way. So whose writings did we look at, or Adventism look at, prior to looking at Litch? Thank you, Susan. Anybody remember the writings that that we were talking about, that Litch's writings were included by what other author, pioneer?
Uriah
Are you
Smith.
referring? Yeah.
Uriah
Uriah
Smith, yeah.
Smith.
By Uriah Smith. And so Uriah Smith, Daniel and the Revelation, and that we know that Ellen White, James White and Ellen White, they actually said that when he called the King of the North Turkey, that he was incorrect. So even though Daniel and the Revelation by Uriah Smith was God's helping hand, she says that interpretation was incorrect. Go ahead. I thought somebody was going to say something.
Yeah, so
I think
was.
that. Oh,
Go ahead, Susan.
I I kind of wanted Elaine to repeat that because that is a place is a confusion area that I can't seem to get sorted straight in my mind. Because we know that, because Jeff told us that that was a wrong interpretation, but then Elder Parmenter brought out that it's a correct interpretation, but then Ellen White said it's an incorrect interpretation. And I'm trying to, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes,
Because I see you like, okay. And so because of this back and forth, I'm struck. We believed it's a correct interpretation in spite of what you're saying, Ellen White said. But if I'm wrong, straighten me out.
yes. So general Adventist teaching, the king of the north is the papacy, and the king of the south was France. I have to remember which history I'm in when I'm talking because it's all mixed up in my head. So the king of the north was the papacy and the king of the south was France. And so France, the king of the south, goes after him, the king of the north. And then the king of the north goes after him, the king of the south. And that's the way Daniel 11:40 tells it. But Josiah Litch, Uriah Smith copied from Josiah Litch when he said that the king of the north was Turkey and the king of the south was Egypt, and the him in the verse was Napoleon, France. So general Adventist thinking is what also, if I understand it correctly, what Elder Jeff also taught, what we all followed until about 2019 to 2020, when Elder Parmenter started to dig out that information and some others digging out that information to actually see that Uriah Smith was copying Josiah Litch and Litch was correct. Did that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I thought, but Ellen White, so we still have that information in the spirit of prophecy that says it's incorrect, and that, right?
Yeah, that she actually said that what Uriah Smith said about the king of the north was incorrect.
Yeah, and that has caused a lot of controversy. I even remember that within the Adventist church itself.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I don't want to, I know that Phil had a remark to make, but sometime maybe if we can understand, was it because she was out of her dispensational
I
realm?
I don't know that. I don't.
Okay.
If I do, I don't remember why. I think it was James White, and she went along with it. That's the way I kind of remember it being said. But Phil, I think you were going to say something too.
Yeah, I think, because we have more light now than they had at their time, I think we have to take that into consideration. 1798, that in that history, so Daniel 11:40, part A, that was correct to say that King of the South took down King of the North. But when the King of the North was taken out of the way, I don't know if they had, the light of resurrection. So it would make sense that if they did not have that light, that they were going to, the King of the North and King of the South, they're going to resurrect again in another history. Then what Litch and Uriah Smith agreed with, because the King of the North has already been taken out, it was a different dispensation. And now there's a different context, different history, different dispensation. And so their interpretation of Turkey and Egypt and Napoleon at that time now made sense. 40 years later, made sense. So now we have the light of resurrection. We have the light of what's that? 1 + 2 = 3, and the other, the parable methodology. And so now Elder Parminder comes along and now says they were correct. So it seems like, in a sense, both are correct. And now, because we're in a modern Rome history, we have to make sense of both correct histories, interpretations.
I like that because I figured it was because she was out of her dispensational realm, and that's why she didn't, agree with it. And what you just said, that marries it for me in my mind, Phil, because I believe that's true too. And that makes the most sense that they were both right for their dispensation.
I can't remember if it said that they were both right, so I can't answer on that, whether or not that, but I'm not remembering it being that they were both right. But and we could probably verify that through going back and through reviewing the videos.
And I just have a question
Yeah,
too, to that, what Phil and Susan said, because I've been looking at these, this was a study given by Tabo. You're aware of this probably too, Elaine. It's on the section, The Role of Islam. And it has a box here, line around it with the place of Islam. The place of Islam, Josiah Lynch.
hang on one second. Hang on.
Yep. Somebody's mic's on.
Okay, go ahead.
Couldn't hear you,
Okay.
Jackie. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, this is Elder Tabo's study, I guess, on the role of Islam, on some of the material that was on the website, Repairs of the Breach, which you sent me, Elaine.
Okay,
And I was reviewing this. I didn't get through it all, but just what you were talking about now was the place of Islam, Josiah Lynch. So, it gives a little background on Josiah Lynch's. He was Adventist pioneer in the year he was in the course of his Advent history. He joined the Millerite movement. Okay, so that's telling a little bit about Josiah Lynch. And then it says he was already well aware that the Protestant world generally believed that Antichrist, under the various prophetic symbols of Daniel and Paul and John, was the papacy. And he knew that Protestants generally believed that this power was to continue for 1260 years or days, and that quite a few of these learned writers began the period with the decree of Focus, I believe, 606 AD. So, I mean, this is going on about Josiah Lynch, and there's another section of it too, with the Woes that are following that. I'm just trying to get it straight in my mind with the role that Josiah Lynch played in his, can we say it was prophecy?
we will. I'll get to that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this goes on, but it's just giving some background to this because it's the first time that he brings Josiah Lynch on the scene here in his study.
So
That he
this
was doing.
question will probably help you answer that question.
Okay.
And I may have some of my details mixed up in my head, but William Miller, what helped William Miller calculate the prophecies that he calculated?
Do you mean the year-day principle?
The year-day principle.
Were you asking Jackie? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that
No,
is,
that's okay,
that is,
whoever wanted to
glad
answer.
you answered that. Thank you, Susan.
The year-day principle, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
day year principle.
So he makes his calculations based on a day equals a year in prophecy. So what did Josiah Lynch predict?
the fall of the Ottoman Empire, or, yeah, August 11th, 1840.
And what methodology did he use to come to that conclusion?
William Miller's.
The day equals the year, right?
Day,
Like
year,
witness
right.
to, so it confirmed a day equals a year in Bible prophecy. Right?
right.
Yes, that's what gave that movement the glorious manifestation too.
Right. So that did, in my mind, I might say this wrong, but in my mind, that did a couple of things, because yes, it gave the glorious manifestation, but it makes this prediction. The prediction confirms the methodology, but it also proves the role of radical Islam in the line, doesn't it?
Yes.
Are you saying for us it does, but for them did it? I don't know. Did it for them? Well, yes, because they did understand the first and second woes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's in the great controversy, I believe. Phil, were you gonna?
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's,
No, okay. Okay. So,
Jackie, did you have a question?
well,
Or-
I was just looking at this section that I read, and it says the 1260 years, days, and that's quite a few of these learned writers began the period with a decree of focus. That's PHOCAS, COCAD, or 606 AD. And the very last sentence says, and consequently would not terminate until 1866. So to Lynch, this evidence had seemed rather decisive. Does that connect anything? Having that information? And he says that that information or evidence had seemed rather decisive.
to this, right?
Yeah, I had an 1866 date on the termination of this.
Would you mind, I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that? I'm sorry. I don't multitask really well. I was thinking
That's all
thinking
right.
I could follow both, and I missed part of what you said.
I'm trying to understand this, where this is the first time I've seen Lynch's name in this study given by Tabo.
Oh, okay,
And
okay, Bible study,
He
okay.
brings him on the scene in, he says Josiah Lynch, of course, he lived in 1809 to 1886.
Okay,
So Adventist pioneer, which we already know. So the very last part of this is talking about the 1260, the year days, and that quite a few of these learned writers began the period with the decree of focus. I think that's how you pronounce that, PHOCAS, in 606 AD. So do we have a 606 AD
Is that
on
an-
our line? What
is-
does that represent?
Jackie, is that an acronym? PHOAC? Is that all capitalized or is that a word?
No, that's a word.
it's probably, you're pronouncing it focus, right?
Yeah,
It's probably, I know that in their writings, they have different spellings for words that we have today. So
okay.
based on what you're saying, I think it's just the word focus, I think.
Yeah, I've never seen that
I
word,
know,
although
that
it does
was throwing me.
pronounce like focus, keep your focus, and that would be spelled with an F,
Hmm,
but this is spelled with a P.
okay,
So consequently, would not terminate until 1866. To Lynch, this evidence had seemed rather decisive.
I'm not familiar with that document. If you
Oh, okay, so
Because I don't know the 1866 date that you're talking about. That he-
I'm
Okay.
glad you said that, Elaine, because I was like, I don't know the 1866 date.
Yeah, well, and this is,
I hope I
this is
said
a study
66.
given on Islam, the rise of Islam, and Tabo, these are his notes. That's,
Okay. If
and
you, if
lines,
you're
there's
able, put
lines
it in
here
the
too.
chat so that we can grab it out of the chat. And,
Mhm.
or
I
put it
don't
in
know
the,
if I can do that or not.
or put it in WhatsApp to somebody.
Yeah, I can do that.
If you can do that, put it in WhatsApp.
Okay,
I know that we'll look at it tonight, but that'll give us the opportunity. 606, somebody asked 606. Does anybody remember what 606 is?
That's what, isn't that what Muhammad had his vision?
Yeah, when he goes into the cave. Yeah.
Yes.
So it sounds like what Jackie's saying.
I'm gonna send it to you, Elaine, excuse me.
Okay, thanks. Sounds like what Jackie's saying is Elder Tabo was placing 606 to 1866 as a 1260. Is that right? What you're saying, Jackie?
Yeah,
I'm unfamiliar with that, so I don't want to go there tonight, but we can look at it.
yeah. I
See
mean,
what it said.
I didn't want to bring some strange thing in here that, I mean,
Well, I don't
Josiah
know what it
Lynch,
is, I
it
just
doesn't
never
mean
heard that.
that's what you're talking about right now.
So,
Just some more history of
Yeah,
what
I
he
don't
was
know.
going through at this time.
yeah, and I don't know. I've not heard that, so I don't know. But I will say that 606 is when Muhammad goes into the cave and gets his.
Ah, okay.
And according to spirit of prophecy, the angel Gabriel goes to him, whether or not that's really what happened. I think spirit of prophecy says that. Okay, so we're gonna do this big line of progression here to try to help get to this place that would be, basically down here. So you've got 31, I hope I have the dates right. These are off the top of my head. 31 BC. Who remembers 31 BC? I think it's
The
31.
Battle of Actium?
Is it 31 BC?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's on this chart. He has too.
Okay, so you got the
He
battle.
has some lines, yeah.
And then
and that-
321.
Was, first one is 31 BC.
Yeah, Actium.
Yeah. And at the top of that, he's got Rome, number 1. It's over on the other side, to the right side of
Oh, I don't want to go
31
over this part
BC.
right now anyways. I'm not familiar with it. And don't have it in front of me to do that. So let's just
Okay.
go trace the history that we do know. 31 BC, we all know is Actium, and it was at 321 AD. The
It was
300
3. The next line is
Not his, you're gonna confuse.
not his.
If you bring
You
it
don't
into
want me to-
study.
Okay. All right. I'll leave that out.
So
I've got the first one, 31 BC though.
Okay, and so we know that Daniel 11:24 talks about a time where Rome will rule supremely. A time, we know that a time is a year, 360 days, the day equals a year, it's 360 years. So 31 BC to 321 BC, you have Rome supreme. And that's probably why he had Rome at the top.
Yes.
That's what you meant, but I don't know.
He
Without
has
having-
Rome number 1.
Yeah. So, yeah, so that would be, you would mark that as pagan. And yes, number 1.
Number 1.
Yes. Okay. So then you're going to go in through this history. We're going to mark, I don't have dates for the, we're going to keep this simple to the ones that I remember, and anybody else that remembers anything, great. But you have, Rome rules supremely here. But then what happens in 321 AD? What does Rome do? Constantine.
321.
Isn't that when he vacates Rome and goes to Constantinople?
Yes, I think
Or is it when he makes the Sunday law?
makes a Sunday law is the one I'm looking for. I don't remember if it's the same time. So this is the time.
Didn't
Okay.
he move the,
Yes, the capital does move.
yeah, that's it, the capital. That's the word I couldn't get out.
Yeah,
to Constantinople, but didn't he do that before he did the Sunday law?
And I think so. I think it's 320. I think it's 320, and I might be off on that one. But I think it was 320 because I remember having on something that I was drawing out before based on a study that I was watching. I'm pretty sure it had 320 and 321 on there. So
Yes,
320
because he did three really interesting things, and he also made gender laws. What? And anyway, I was thinking about how Trump moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
we'll put that down as a question mark. Because I think I don't want to go there, but that's another topic to look at. Okay. Thank you, Susan, for that. So I think it's 320 when he moves the capital to Constantinople, but I might have that wrong if somebody looks it up.
Well, I've got a date for, it says 330 AD, change of seat to Constantinople.
So it's after. Okay, so it's after.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so in that, we know that in this history, there's a Sunday law. In this history, what other book in the Bible do we look at for this history?
how about Daniel 8?
No, that's not the one I'm thinking of.
Okay,
What takes place? They make a Sunday law. What happens?
Um, the trumpets.
The trumpet.
Yeah, the first four trumpets.
Okay, so you have the four trumpets. We're not gonna go into any details, but anybody remember the four barbarian tribes that were part of that?
Germanic. Wasn't it was it the Vandals, the Visigoth?
Which ones are the four? Those, neither one of those yet are the four. Is it Vandals? I'm thinking of the names of the leaders, so I might have you might be right. I'm thinking of the names of the leaders. So.
Yeah, the Orlick.
Alaric,
Alaric. Yeah, there we go.
you have Attila,
Attila the Hun. Those are
Odoacer? I don't remember how to say that. Something like that. I'm
yeah, Odoacer.
Odoacer. I'm probably spelling it wrong. And I had all four of them in my head earlier. Genseric.
Yep, they all sound familiar.
And I might be spelling them wrong. Don't know the order, but that just puts them in place as the four trumpets. So what is a trumpet
the wall.
announcing? It's announcing something. What's it announcing and bringing?
Bringing down of a kingdom.
Yes. More specific. Think about the time period that the trumpets are in, because we see the first four, we know we're gonna move to see the rest. So the trumpet is going to be what?
Is it a woe or not?
You see the
It's
woes in this history.
Yeah,
it's a punishment to the pagan Rome for making the Sunday law.
Sarah's got it, and you've got it too. She's using the word judgment. I'm gonna put that. Okay. Trumpet specifically is a judgment on who?
Rome.
Rome. In three phases. Correct? Because if you go back beyond this history, going back into Daniel 2 and 7, 8, going into Revelation 17, where you're going to see the history of Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, and Rome. So you have Babylon, Medo Persia, and Greece. You don't see the trumpets come until this history. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so Revelation 8 being the first 4 trumpets is going to be this history here. Right? And it's a judgment on Rome. Why?
Sunday law.
Because they made the Sunday law. Okay. So this dismantles, and we're not going through that history. I don't know it well enough in detail. But we do have the 4 trumpets, and they may not even be in the right order. But those 4 trumpets are the judgment that goes upon Rome for making a Sunday law that eventually dismantles it. You've got, and then 330, I think is what Jackie said, 330 is when the seat is moved to Constantinople. Okay, so the seat is moved to Constantinople. And in that history, you also have the power seat and then great authority. So we're not going to go look at that because I don't have it unless anybody else can answer those questions. But we just want to kind of break down the trumpets. Now we're going to be at 538, and you have the papacy. This history here finishes out the 1260, because we know the 1260 goes all the way back to 677, correct? Is that correct?
Sounds familiar. Yeah,
Okay,
because there's 2 1260s. So one ended at 538, and then 538 begins another 1260.
okay, so hopefully that makes sense. 677 where it starts. So this is completing that first 1260. Then you have the other 1260. And you have, and this is told to us in, not fresh in my mind, 3 different places, right? Times, and half a time, 1260. Has it's given to us like several different ways, if anybody remembers that. So marking the 1260 beginning here, we know is at the papacy. And what does the papacy do in 538? Did somebody already answer that and I didn't write it?
Another Sunday law.
Another Sunday law. So now what's going to happen?
More trumpets with woes.
Okay, so now you're gonna have the, let's go to here. 1798. So you're gonna have 5th and 6th trumpet. And 1st and 2nd woe in this history. So it's a judgment on, this was number 1, then who is this one?
Judgment on papal Rome.
Papal Rome, so it's gonna be number 2. Okay, so you have a judgment, 4 trumpets, a Sunday law by Constantine, comes a judgment, the 4 trumpets made up of these barbarian tribes that eventually dismantle, and we're skipping that history to just come to 538. The papacy is Rome number 2, makes a Sunday law. Now you have this judgment coming on papal Rome that's going to consist of the 5th and 6th trumpet, and those trumpets have a portion of it that are a woe. Does anybody remember what the woe is? Why it's
The woes,
huh?
woes, Islam.
That part, yeah, but I mean, why is it described as a woe?
Because terrible destructions.
Terrible destruction. And I think the word was intensity. I think it's one of the words as well. So terrible destruction and intensity of I'm just gonna go to here. Okay. So Jackie mentioned 606. And we've talked about that, so what happens in 606? You have
That's the
Sunday
the rise of Islam.
rise of Islam, so you have,
Revelation 9.
yeah. I'll put that there for sure. And you have Muhammad. And he goes to the cave and gets a vision. Right? So you see the rise, as you just said, of Islam. Okay,
And this is what Lynch was saying earlier when I was reading that paragraph.
oh, Lich, okay,
606,
okay,
that date was in
yes,
what he was agreeing to.
yes. Because this is where the cave, Muhammad goes into the cave and receives his vision. 327, I think it is. I'm sorry, 627. 627. Anybody remember what happens in 627? Battle.
Does it have to do with Chosroes?
Yes, yes. The Battle of Nicomedia, and it's Khosrows, yes. Okay, can anybody repeat that story, summary of that story? We went through it a couple weeks ago.
That's when Rome and Persia were battling, and Muhammad sent a representative to Persia, which is Chosroes, wanting to accept Allah as their God and unite to defeat Rome. But Chosroes refused.
Right. So he refused, and then what happened after that?
He got defeated by Rome.
Defeated. And what was the result of that?
Well, that was the key to allow Islam, radical Islam. I don't know if that's, I don't know, is that right to say radical Islam at that time?
Yes,
But anyways, it gave them the opportunity to come and conquer.
right. And I don't know if it's necessarily radical, because he was uniting all the people into the Islamic faith.
Right.
And he wanted Khosrows, Persia, to denounce their gods, and accept the one true God, Allah, that they could fight together. So he refuses it. Persia loses against Rome. But Rome, because Persia and Rome had been fighting for many years, Rome was depleted and had no strength. And this is the key that opened up for, you have Arabia down here. You have Persia. I'm going to do this really bad. Persia. And you have Rome. And Rome is split here between Eastern and Western and Eastern Rome. And at Eastern Rome is where you have Constantinople, right? And Arabia or Islam, Muhammad gets his vision that he's to punish Rome. So he goes to Persia to unite with Persia so that together they can defeat Rome. Persia rejects that, gets defeated, and this brings the, what's it called? The smoke, it's called the smoke, the manifestation, this manifestation of, somebody help me remember the words.
Bottomless pit.
The bottomless pit, out of the bottomless pit. So this false religion comes up and now is let loose, with Persia out of the way. And I think the way we described it last time was the way I'd heard it from Elder Parmenter. It's like a bottle, there's a cork on it, and Persia's the cork in the bottle, and in the bottle is Islam. And so when Persia's out of the way, the cork is off, this allows Islam to start moving forward on Rome. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So from there on, we already know that you have, I'm gonna do this a little bit different. So you have Western Rome, and you have Eastern Rome, and you have Constantinople, and there's that little strait, that's a very narrow space there. I think the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea, but a very narrow space there to get to, and it's the stronghold. Constantinople is the stronghold to get in and eventually get to defeat Rome. So Persia's taken out of the way in 627 at the Battle of Nicomedia. That's the key that opens up the bottomless pit that allows that smoke. I think it's written that way, but I might have it wrong. Smoke to come out. So Islam comes out of that bottle and now moves its way towards Constantinople to do its job of defeating Rome. The judgment for placing the Sunday law. Now, I want to ask this question because I think about these things a lot. So Muhammad goes to the cave and he gets this vision of what he's supposed to do. Do you think he's told, this religion is an apostate and it's going to make a Sunday law and I want you to go punish him for that? Is that how it worked?
No, I don't believe so. And it's a false religion.
Yes.
And so I can't see God involved in spreading a false religion to do his work, to do their work, God. So it seems it's got to be a satanic. I have a hard time because there's good people within Islam. And so, yet you can't say, I don't think using the term radical Islam is always correct either. I understand why we need to say it. Like you had mentioned, if somebody stumbled upon this, but the religion is a false religion. And,
And I don't know that I don't know this, so I'm stating that I don't know, that you could actually refer to it back here at this point in time, radical Islam. They're just this new
and
faith
like you,
developing and trying to gather up everybody into it.
Yeah.
And here and punish.
that's what you said too, is they're gathering everybody into it. So that's not necessarily that all those people are radicalized, but that, right, like a rat.
It's a new religion,
But it's deceiving everybody.
yes. So we have history to show us this, but we have the Bible to show us prophecy. And the prophecy would be that a false religion is going to come out and deceive this darkness that is going to deceive everyone and go up to this apostate church. So, okay, so that takes us to 1798. What we will do is break down a little bit. We don't have a lot of space on here. We will break down. So the first woe . First woe is 150 years, correct?
What one was the 150 years and 15 days?
The 15 days goes to the other one.
Okay,
The 150 years is, so you're gonna come all the way to.
12.
Anybody remember the date?
So 12, 1200 something.
Close, 1299. So what happens in 1299? Try to make this smaller. Anybody remember it? What happens in 12? If somebody's putting it in the chat, go ahead and read it out to me. This is Nicomedia. And it's the key. Okay, so 1299. Torment. Yeah, you do have torment. But who does the tormenting? What happens if there's something significant that happens in 1299?
1299 brings them to the 1449.
Yes,
That's not-
but who remembers?
Trying.
What did Islam eventually, as an empire, what were they called?
Ottomans.
Ottoman.
Othman. Othman.
Yeah. Ottoman. So you have Ottoman. So now you have this empire. And it's going to be the woe portion and takes you, as Susan just said, to 1449, right? So that's 150 years. And I was reading, and I haven't researched it further, but I was reading an article. I think it's Britannica. I think. Trying to remember 1449. 1449, then you have 4 years. We have that. No, we don't have that here. It goes to 1453. So you're looking at the 1453 is the when the fall of Constantinople. You have the different sultans that take place in here. And also, I believe Constantine 12 at Constantinople. Constantine the 12th. If anybody remembers, correct me if I'm wrong on some of this. Were you gonna
I
say-
can't. Yeah, the only thing I wanted to get clear is, wasn't that the Byzantine Empire, Constantine, Rome? Okay, that's known as the Byzantine
Yes,
Empire.
yes. And you have the Ottoman Empire and you have the Byzantine Empire, which is Eastern Rome, right? Do I have that right?
Yes, yes. I
Eastern
just
Rome.
wanted to be sure.
I'm seeing a different perspective. Not to take you off track, Elaine,
Go ahead.
but I'm seeing a different perspective from you from the start. The number 7, the symbol of gathering and scattering, we usually use, and I think this still stands because it's numerals. The symbol that we used to use for gathering was the number 7, the 7 last kings, the 7 and 3 angels, and for scattering would be 7 and 4. I'm seeing here we have pagan Rome as number 1, papal Rome as number 2. I see another perspective. Pagan Rome as number 1, Eastern Rome as number 2, Western Rome as number 3, and Rome today would be number 4. That's continuous scattering. That's the perspective that I'm seeing. I don't know if do you follow what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. It's not anything that I've seen taught, so I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but
Right,
what I have seen is just the three versions of Rome. You have pagan Rome, papal Rome, modern Rome.
right. But because papal is split in two, I just saw that perspective.
Yeah. Pagan, you said.
Yes,
Yeah, it's pagan.
pagan? No, papal. Sorry, Eastern Rome and the what is it? The Byzantine.
Yeah, but
So
that,
East.
this is,
Uh-huh.
this is even before 538. Isn't it? I might have that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that happens in here somewhere where they split. Yeah, it happens back in here, I believe, when they split.
In pagan Rome.
I think so, because you've got you've got pagan Rome rules supremely and for 360 years. So the split has to be in this history here already.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? I'm pretty sure that's right. Well, I mean,
Well,
they only ruled for 360 years, so something happens there to split them.
well, I'm still seeing the four, the number four. You know, the continuous scattering.
It could be, it could be, I don't know,
Yeah, I don't know.
to
Just
put it that way.
just my observation.
Because you do have that period of time, you have, they rule supremely, and then you have this period of time before the papacy where they're split. So.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, we can keep that in the back of our mind, but I know the only way I've seen it taught is three different Romes. But they all
Yes.
become split.
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm seeing, and I've seen too. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so you have the 150 years, and the 150 years, I think somebody already put in here at some point in time where they torment, or they actually, what's the word the Bible uses? Torment, and what else? The words that we use to describe the woes. What's the first woe?
Hurt,
Hurt. Okay.
Followed by kill.
Followed by kill. So you have the first woe. They're gonna hurt. And we don't have room in here to put the little 1453 on here, but Constantine, I'm pretty sure it's Constantine the 12th, dies in 1451 or 52. And it's actually his brother. I think it's his brother. I hope I have this right. I sent it out to somebody, but
I think he died in 1451.
1451.
I'm thinking,
It was a Greek name.
do you mean the Paleologos
Yes,
guy?
yes. Was he his brother? Or do I have that mixed up with something? But he's the one that's in this history. I might have that mixed up with something, but anyway, so because while you have Rome, you also have Greece going on in here. Okay. And this was Orthodox Christians. And then we know this is Catholic, right? Okay. So this article
I
that
think Greece, that would be Eastern Orthodox classified, right? Anyway,
maybe
never mind.
That's okay. I don't know on that for sure. So, but I just know that there was a division. They weren't friends from what I was reading in this article. And so the one that took over after Constantine the 12th, unless it was Constantine the 12th and the one before him died, I might have that wrong. But the one that takes over, he takes over right after 1451. And there's been this whittling down of during the woe, there's been this whittling down, and actually from back in this history back in here, and I'm trying to, does anybody remember when the wall was built in Constantinople? I think it was way back somewhere. But the wall was built, so it's almost impenetrable, and it's the protection to keep the Ottoman Empire out from coming in. And we know that they actually tried to come in through Spain. And they were not successful in coming in through Spain. There was some battles that took them to try to come in this way, and they were unsuccessful coming in that way. Okay. So the I can't remember the name of it. If it was Constantine the 12th, or he's the one that died and his brother came in. It might have been Constantine the 12th. I might have the names wrong, but 1451, the emperor, the one that's ruling, dies, and his brother, his brother takes over. And in 1453 is when the wall is finally breached. But there's this history that I was reading about this morning that says that this not liking each other here was a problem, because the ruler here, I believe Greece, they were Orthodox Christians, and they would have had to summon the support of, it says the Latin, but the Catholics, and calling on the Pope to help. But one of them says that he'd rather lose to the Ottoman Empire than to get the help of the Catholic Church and have to surrender their Christian Orthodox to Catholicism. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I mean, have you read that before, is what I mean.
No, I have not read that.
Okay, I think you're the one that I sent that article to.
Which I have not read.
And I want to look at it again and try to resource it out a few more times. So from the article that I was reading, though, this leader here in Constantinople would have there was this discussion of getting support from Rome, which would Latin help and Latin soldiers, which would have meant this merging between the Orthodox Christians and the Catholics. And he refused the help of Rome. And I don't know if that's accurate, but we can try to verify that. Anyways, if that be the case, if that article is true, we can see how with these two divided, and this one not wanting this one to help, you don't have the help you need, that gives the advantage to the Ottoman Empire. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it gives an advantage to the Ottoman Empire, and then you see 1453 is when the Ottoman the wall falls, and the Ottoman Empire penetrates and goes through and set their capital at Constantinople. There's another term that I came across, and I think we've talked about it, not us, but I think it's been talked about before. I think it was brought up maybe in Portugal or some classes, but does anybody, when they conquered Constantinople and set their capital there, there's a church that they went in. I'm going to use my words, poor paraphrase from my memory this morning, from my poor memory as well. They desecrated with, their false religion in this church.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying yes. I remember that study vaguely.
Okay. Does anybody remember what the Ottoman Empire referred to? I don't know if it's specifically I think it's specifically the church. Maybe it is. It's coming back to me a little bit. Specifically the church, but what they called it. Do you remember what they called it, Troy?
No, sorry, no.
I'm hoping I do. And I believe it was a church that was built and had Justinian's statue.
Mary says the Sophia Haggai.
Yes,
that
that's
one?
it. Yes, that's the
I
church.
think that's still in existence, isn't it? I think you can still
Maybe.
go visit that.
So I think that's the church that had a statue of Justinian in front of it. And what was he holding? Does Mary remember what he was holding? I might have this wrong, because again, my memory's bad. But I think it was an apple. I think it said red apple. Does that ring a bell to anybody? I might have it wrong.
Not to me,
Okay. I might
but
have it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it said it was they called it the big red apple or something like that. It was a globe. And they symbolized that church as the power that was now theirs for all of this. Does that make sense?
you mean like the orb that they
Yes.
have that shows they have power over the world?
Something like that. Something like that. And I'm pretty sure it was a statue of Justinian that was at that church that I might have some of my facts mixed up, but they saw that as the Constantinople in that church is a symbol of them now ruling. So you've got this false religion that comes out of this vision that Muhammad has that comes all through this history. And the vision is they're raised up to conquer, whatever his vision tells him to conquer Rome. And so you have 627, where you have this battle going on for, I'm pretty sure it's back in his history here. This battle goes on for many years between Rome and Persia, and Muhammad sends an ambassador to. He doesn't go to Khosrows, he goes to somebody under Khosrows, and then he reads it to Khosrows. Khosrows rejects it, the suggestion, what have you to say, to reject your gods and accept Islam, and that Allah is the true and only God. And Khosrows rejects that, which then is the key that winds up with Persia being destroyed by Rome. Rome is depleted in this history from this long war with Persia, and this allows Arabia, from Arabia coming up the smoke out of the bottomless pit. When the cork is removed, Persia is removed out of the way, and then they become this pummeling to work their way and spread the Ottoman Empire. Does that make sense? They're going to spread the Ottoman Empire and work their way towards Rome. So when you get to 1299, they now have I get this part confused and I might be wrong, but they have a king over them now, or they have a caliphate. I think that's the way you would say that, but it's the Ottoman Empire. Osman establishes the Ottoman Empire, and this begins the Woe period, 1299, 150 years to 1449. And then you have that 4-year period there where you've got one emperor dies and the other one follows, takes over, and that one is the one that at this time, according to the article that I read, does not want to seek the help of the Latin help, because it would be their religion versus this religion, didn't want to do that. Had a point that I wanted to just make as well. So Ottoman Empire is moving in on Constantinople in 1453. Finally, the wall comes down. There's a lot of history between 1449 and 1453 that brings the wall down. They go into that church that Mary put in there, Hagia Sophia, and claim that as to be now they are. And I was picturing this in my mind this morning while I was reading this, that when they step into this church, and we'll put it, when they step into this church, this is, they claim this as their now the religion of the world. Does that make sense? I might be being too broad when I say that, but when we look at it from the big picture, they think they're the true religion, and they're supposed to get rid of this apostate religion, all the apostates. And so when they set foot in this church, stake their territory, they've now achieved, and they're going to be the religion of the world, then known world. Did that make sense? Any thoughts or comments on that?
it made sense. But boy, do I need this over and over again to remember it all.
It's been that way for me too, but I've been listening to these videos over and over again that have really helped me. But some of this is stuff that I've read that has not already been taught. So I need to verify that article of some of this information. I'm pretty sure this part's true. Mary understood that as well, I believe. So I'm pretty sure, I know the part about the church is true. So that they go into that church. Okay, so then you get to, I think you have, the woe portion. Because this is the end of the first trumpet and the first woe. Then you have the sixth trumpet. I hope I do this right. So you have the sixth trumpet now, and you're going to have the woe. And this is what, somebody can maybe do the math. This is Revelation 12:12, is it? Where it gives you the day, the hour, the month, and the year. That is 391 years and 15 days, correct? If somebody could do the math, because I can't remember, I'm pretty sure it starts at 1453. If somebody do the math real quick.
Isn't that the one that goes to 1840?
Correct, is that correct? So is the woe the entire? I'm trying to remember, is the woe the entire portion? Okay, so then you have, we're gonna go down here and put it in here, 1840. You have 391 years and 15 days. Maybe that's the length of the trumpet, not the woe. I don't remember. I don't remember the specifics on that. So 391 years and 15 days. And this we know, is the Sultan gives his power over, tell me if I'm saying this wrong, to the great powers, which was the four powers of Europe at the time. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
1453 was the year that the siege began.
For
And it ended for April 6th, 1453. I just went and got the book off the shelf because I'm trying to keep up.
And I want to make sure, because he points out, Elder Parmenter points out that this being 1 and this being 4, that there were 4 sultans and 1 power in Europe.
Yeah, because was it when you were talking about earlier, when you talking about the whether it was a 12,
Yes,
the brother, that was when uh the I guess it was, I don't know if it was Rome or Greek king that bowed the knee to 4 sultans.
so it would be, if it was, I can't remember if it was Constantine the 12th or if he's the one that died and his brother took over. It might have been Constantine the 12th. So
Right, but it was, yeah, but it was at that time, yeah, it was one king bowed the knee to the 4 sultans, and then in 1840 was the opposite direction.
okay. Okay. So you
That
have,
one, sorry,
go ahead, Susan.
go ahead, Phil.
No, go ahead, I'm done.
Oh, in the book, I went to the book and, it talked about the 4 angels that were loosed for that hour, day, month, and year to slay the third part of men. And that period was when the Ottoman Empire would be at its supremacy and the time it was to exist. And that amounted to the 391 years and 15 days. So prophetically, it says a prophetic year is 360 prophetic days, or 360 literal years. A prophetic month, 30 prophetic days, is 30 literal years. One prophetic day is 1 literal year, and an hour, or the 24th part of a prophetic day, would be a 24th part of a literal year, or 15 days, the whole amounting to 391 years and 15 days. And that was when Islam was to be loosed for that time.
Yeah. Help me with what was the day?
The day, let me go
It was
back.
just the day, right?
The 24th part of a literal year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, a prophetic day is the 24th part of a prophetic day, 24
Mhm.
hours.
So 391 years and 15 days. 15 days, right? 391
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
an hour. Okay. Okay. So we see this skirt, we see that what the trumpets represent. The trumpets represent judgment on Rome, not Medo-Persia, Greece, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, but the trumpets come in the book of Revelation as judgments on Rome. So the history, when we're reading Revelation, that history of Revelation 8 and then 9, Revelation 8 and 9 overlays all this history. Is that correct? And then as well as chapter 11, Revelation 11.
Right. That's right.
Overlays this history. Okay, so you have Revelation 8, the 4 trumpets. Then you have Revelation 9, the 5th and 6th trumpet. Then you're going to go into Revelation 11. And it's going to continue, if I remember right, how he says that, is it brings them up to the same history. I think that's how he says it. I think it's Josiah Litch, that it brings it up to the same history. I gotta remember how he said that. But he gives from 2 different perspectives coming to this same history here. Revelation 9 and 11, walks you through the history again. And then you're going to have, then there's going to come the 7th trumpet and the 3rd woe. Hope I said that right. Okay, so let's break down a little bit more from what I remember in this history. We looked at this. What war was this? Does anybody remember? You got 1798, time of the end. Does anybody remember this period here, what this war was?
Syrian wars.
The Syrian War.
Elaine, could you tell us which presentations are you going through that Elder Parmenter did that talks about this?
A whole bunch of them. And I don't know if I'll remember all of them, but I know that one of them was called Islam in Prophecy. And I hate to ask you again, Christine, if you're able. She posted it in the chat a few times. There's that one. There's also Portugal, School of the Prophets, number 68. Don't remember the title off the top of my head. Oh, was 9/11 necessary? Something like that. That's one of them. Another one is posted in the chat. If she wasn't here when you posted it, Susan, maybe you can post it again. The one that's called Damaging Ignorance on 9/11, something like that. There's 3 of them that I do remember off the top of my head. There are others that I've picked up pieces of from, but there's those 3 at least. And if you Googled Islam and prophecy, Parminder Bryant, it'll pull that one up, because I don't remember where I found it. I think it's on Prophetic Herald and then wherever else it was from. And the other one that she posted today, the damaging ignorance, that was somewhere in Africa. And it would be in that history in 2020. Because we saw it in 2019, August, I believe, of 2019, early August, before the split occurred, before the conference, the international camp meeting in Germany. In August, early August, was when this light on Josiah Litch began to open up. I don't know if anybody remembers. Does anybody, I don't think we've talked about it, but we'll see if anybody remembers what the subject was that they were talking about when the light on Josiah Litch began to open. Does anybody remember? I don't remember how it came up, but they were talking about predestination. Somebody brought that in. I don't know. They were talking about predestination. And it didn't really click into me all until I was rewatching a lot of these videos. And that's another place to go look as well. Gloria is Brazil, 2019. In August. The three titles, there's three of them, I believe, titled Predestination. And
Are
Was
you bringing that piece in because of Islam's rule? And it appears that it's predestined?
I don't think it's that one. Oh yeah, that's Islam prophecy. Okay. They were talking about predestination, but if I remember correctly, they were talking about predestination that opened up that subject that brought him to Litch's understanding or his interpretation. Because if you look at we understand based on the 2520 and several quotes by Ellen White that Jesus could have returned. When was Jesus supposed to return?
1863?
Right. And so Jesus didn't return. And I think it went into the then study of conditional prophecy.
Oh, on the condition that we cooperate with God?
Something like that. And so then what do you do with this history here? How does it make sense? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but anyways, those are three videos to watch. They were called Predestination. So you could probably Google Predestination Parminder Bryant and it'll take you to that playlist maybe. Okay, so we brought up Greece here because I specified it from what I was reading is because we know that the Ottoman Empire, Islam is raised up to defeat and conquer Rome. But they actually had to go through a lot more to get there. And Greece was one of those places that's in between that they had to go through. Okay, so now Greece, because of 1453, and you've got the king that surrenders to the four sultans. And now Greece is incorporated into Islam or the Ottoman Empire. Greece is now incorporated into, so because what are they doing? They're trying to swallow up everything. And now Greece is incorporated. So when you get into this history here, which is expanded here, there's a couple of wars that we briefly talked about. One of them, and I'm not going to remember the dates. I can look on the other side if we need to. I think they might be on the other side of the board. One of them was, oh, let's start here. Anyways, we'll start here. 1798. Josiah Litch tells us that the king of the north is Turkey. And the king of the south is who?
Egypt.
Egypt. And him,
Napoleon.
Napoleon, France. Yeah. Okay. So we know that Napoleon strikes the deadly wound on the papacy, keeping in mind that that's actually the job of Islam to take down Rome. Napoleon is the one that gives the deadly wound to the King of the North, the papacy. After Napoleon, I'm pretty sure it's after, Napoleon then goes, where does Napoleon go from there?
India?
Say that again?
India?
Not India. Napoleon, he's in France, where does he go to?
Egypt.
Egypt.
He goes to Egypt, and yes, Jackie, he goes there for a purpose that involves India. So,
Okay, that's what I had on my
Yeah.
notes.
so Napoleon goes to Egypt. He wants to defeat his enemy, which is England, Great Britain, and Great Britain is rich off of India, trade with India. Hope I say that right. And Napoleon wants to cut off their transit, cut off and establish, I don't know if he wants to cut off, but he wants to go and establish trade with India to cut off the economic resources for Great Britain. So you have Napoleon.
So he goes to Egypt to do that because that's where what is that? The Suez, Gulf of Suez, or,
Eventually they build the Suez Canal, correct?
but I think it was called the Gulf previous. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what it was called, but you're right, because there was a canal there, but it wasn't the Suez Canal. So they did have trade going down there, and without that trade route, they had, Great Britain had to go all the way down through Africa and up to India. With the trade route, they could go straight down and through it over to India. Don't have room on here for that map. And I'm not an artist either, as anybody can see. But so he goes down to Egypt, and I think Susan brought this up, and I think I heard it told this way. You brought up that, didn't they go down there on a, like, archaeological, is that what's the word?
Oh, yeah, there was an he did bring along archaeologists.
Yes. And
That
the way
didn't go so well either, but he was an art admirer a lot like Hitler was.
Well, I think my understanding
in.
of it was more of a guise.
Yeah, a cover.
Yeah, a cover for what he was really going there for. So that goes on, and so they do wind up with the hieroglyphics, the Rosetta Stone, right? That opens up the hieroglyphics. Is that right? Do I say that right? Okay, so they do wind up with that happening here. But Napoleon goes and he winds up getting defeated by Egypt. The king of the south pushes against him. And then he decides to head up to Syria. And the king of the north, Turkey, comes at him like a whirlwind. So you have all that history here, right here, talking about Daniel 11:40. And moving forward, what happens here is what eventually, we got to understand that the king of the south, Egypt, is a pasha. I think I understood this better. A pasha is the title, I hope I have this right, is the title that's given to them by the Ottoman Empire. So you have the Sultan, and he has vassals in different places. In Egypt, the pasha was his title, and he's a vassal to the Ottoman Empire. A vassal to the king of the north. Okay? So he's a vassal to the king of the north. And what happens here sets the stage for what eventually happens here. So you have the, I don't remember the date, but you have the Wahhabi Ottoman War. They were, I think I read it, the way I read it, they were embarrassed. The Ottomans were embarrassed by the Wahhabis and their extremism, their puritanical ways. And the Pasha actually sends his son, so this is part of Ottomans, he's a vassal of the Ottomans. The Pasha of Egypt.
Yeah,
sent his-
he was a commander in the, he was actually a commander in the Ottoman army, and he was made, it's sort of the way, well, I don't want to sidetrack, but this is a format that they use. Like when Egypt had satrapies, when they would put different people in charge of certain areas, but they would sit at a main area and have each, like generals or somebody in charge. And so the person they put in charge was this Pasha, but he was actually Ottoman, but he was, yeah,
Yeah, he was,
he was,
Ottoman.
yeah.
Yeah. But he winds up getting sort of empowered along the way, and he's actually on his own trying to establish himself so that he can be independent of the Ottomans. So the king of the south is actually trying to establish himself that he would be independent of Turkey, of the Ottoman Empire. And so the king of the south sends his son, and you have a battle between the Ottomans now, because he would be part of the Ottomans, and the Wahhabis. They, if I remember it correctly, the way it was worded is that the Ottomans were actually, the Ottoman Empire, they were actually embarrassed by these puritanical Wahhabis. So you've got that battle there. Then you have, and
Was that the Battle of Abukar?
Abu Bakr?
No, that's next, I think, but the Nile,
I don't remember the names of it.
Battle of the Nile, okay.
You do have another battle that I think involved, and I don't know if this is the one, but that because what the Pasha of Egypt winds up doing is establishing with Sudan and the African slave trade.
Oh,
So he's trying to build his own empire and be independent of Turkey or the Ottoman Empire. He's trying to build power to eventually that power eventually leads to this war here. So you've got the Wasabi Ottoman War. Then you have, and let me see if I don't know if I have the dates over here. And I don't remember where I wrote it at. We'll turn it over. How about that? Because I do have it over here. Okay. A little bit bigger on this one. Okay, so you've got the Wahhabi Ottoman War. It's 1811 to 1818, and this is the son, the Pasha of Egypt sends his son here, and you have this battle here, and I'm pretty sure the Wahhabis lost this war, and the Ottomans won. It was called the Saudi War, but maybe it's the Saudis I'm thinking of. The Saudis were embarrassed of the Wahhabis. I think it's the Saudis, because the Ottoman Saudi War, that they were embarrassed by but they would all be part of the Ottoman Empire. I'm pretty sure I have that right. Okay, so 1811 to 1818 is this Wahhabi War. And then you have the War of Greek Independence. Because remember, back here, you have, when the Ottoman Empire comes in, it's actually this this area of Greece that they wind up with in over through time, and they wind up, so Greek winds up a part of the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so Greek is a part of the Ottoman Empire, and they're fighting for their independence. And the Battle of Navarino, I think it's what it is, Navarino. You have Russia, Britain, and France are supporting the Greeks. And I think it's at this battle because you still have the Pasha of Egypt with the Sultan, the Ottoman Sultan together. And this is the one that I wasn't sure about, we talked about before, where the Sultan actually requests the help of the Pasha of Egypt in this Greek War of Independence. So this Greek War of Independence is happening. The Pasha comes to help, and he comes to help in exchange for, and the websites that I was looking at, and it's in some of the notes on the Repairs of the Breach website. I think it's in those 3 files that you can't read, we can't open yet. That it doesn't say Syria, but it does say in exchange for, I think it said land or something, but it didn't specify Syria, but they were promised something in exchange for their help. So the Pasha of Egypt goes to help the Sultan in this battle. And in this Battle of Navarino, you have Russia, Britain, and France that are supporting the Greeks. And the Pasha, and I'm pretty sure they were defeated at that battle. And it was a deciding factor, but the battle still continues on. Greece isn't fully independent yet, because I think I have it marked down to here 32, where they finally wind up independent from the Ottoman Empire. So Greek independence here in 32. Okay, so what happened though was with the Sultan promising in exchange for the help of the Pasha to give him, I don't remember the words that he used. I just knew it didn't say Syria, but it was definitely that they were going to get land. I just don't remember how it was phrased. And the Sultan reneges and does not give him what he's promised, does not give the Pasha of Egypt what he's promised. And we know that to be this now, whether that to be Syria, and that now you have the 10-year war here, the Syrian war between Egypt and on the Ottoman Empire. I know I staggered that out. Is everybody following that so far?
Yes.
You following that? Okay. So this begins this war. So the reason I'm seeing this, and I don't have it all figured out, these steps are important because what do we lay over this history?
I mean, Millerite history?
Well, this is Millerite history.
Well, our history from 1989.
Right. We would overlay our history from 1989. So this would be 1989 here. But you're going to go all the way to here before you get to 9/11. That would be another line that I'd probably have to work on, at least drawing it out to be able to go all the way to 1865, however we're going to do it, and then close probation. But if that makes sense, so you have 1989, and then this would actually be August 11th, 1840. No, we do that. I think there's 2 different ways that you would draw this out, because we know that on the big line, the 144,000, this would actually be 9/11. But what this history here pointed to is 1831 to 1841, 10 years. You have a battle here that lasts 2 years. There's a break in between, and then you have a battle that lasts 2 years. This is supposed to be 6. So you have 6 years in between where they're not fighting. So you've got 2 years here and 2 years here bookended with this 10-year Syrian war. And this actually was lined up with the 10-year Syrian war from 2011 to 2021, where you see here, August 11th, 1840 is marking the restraint on Islam, in 2020, marking the restraint And so this is history we want to try to look at on our history as we go through and review some of the events of the building of the making of ISIS.
I'm wondering, in our history, if we're seeing the chiasm to that of the Battle of Independence of Greece from the King of the North in that history versus this history, the Battle of Ukraine with Russia. You know, it's switched. Now it's the King of the South and not the King of the North. I'm wondering.
I don't know that you could do that because this technically, oh, I don't know, and I'm scared to do anything major. Because this is all gonna, in one sense, this is all before 9/11. But in another sense, it's taking you to the 10-year Syrian war in our history. So I don't know that I could answer that because I don't know that I could go, I don't know that I fully understand here. Because technically, on the big line, 1840 is 9/11. So
Right, yes.
Does that
It's
make
just
sense?
a thought, not to throw you off. It's just a thought.
Yeah. So, so you would have to see some of this. I don't know where you would place it, because if you would just put this on the big line and have that 1840 and this still be 2020, then definitely this all happens before 2011, whatever went on. So definitely it wouldn't be Ukraine because it's all prior to. Does that make sense?
Yes, the way you just explained it, yes.
So, so I think if I remember, if I'm able to remember, that maybe what we'll do is we'll look at the making of ISIS next time, because that's a whole nother story, and we were almost out of time to go back into looking at the making of ISIS to see, to put the things in place here, building up to 1989. The 10 years prior to that, where you have the Iranian Revolution, you have the Iran-Iraq War, and you have the war in Afghanistan. So the Iranian Revolution removes the USA as an ally to Iran, brings in Sharia law, and puts in the Ayatollah Khomeini as their religious and political leader now. You have this Sharia law and all the strict restrictions on women's rights and all of that. And if I remember right, it's Iraq, Saddam Hussein, who was also supported early on by the United States. I don't remember the details of that, but we have some notes on that. And he's afraid, he's Sunni, and most of Iraq is Shia. And he's afraid with what happened in Iran is going to now come over and spread into Iraq. And therefore you wind up with the Iran-Iraq war. But you also have in that same history, 79 to 89, the Afghanistan war. Russia invades Afghanistan. Russia invades Afghanistan. The United States and several others, China and Iran, also support Afghanistan. And then you have Russia had a puppet government in Afghanistan, but then you had I don't know if you call them the rebels at the time, but that's where the Mujahideen go and are supported by the United States and others to fight Russia in Afghanistan. And that culminates in, I believe, 1989. So you have the papacy how do I say this? You have the king of the north and the king of the south. You have the union that takes down this, the union of the papacy in the United States that takes down gives a deadly wound to the Soviet Union, right? But a couple of those, couple of the articles, several articles I've been reading that we talked about last time, that they also attribute a big part of the fall of the Soviet Union to that Afghan war, where the Mujahideen, which would be radical Islam, or this is the beginnings of it, and Bin Laden's a part of it, and Zarqawi, can't remember which one it was, is also a part of that early on. Or I might have him mixed up with another one. I think they were both there, but I might have mixed up with an earlier one. So I don't remember the name. We'll go through that later to determine the names. But several articles, no doubt, attribute a part of the fall of the Soviet Union was the defeat that they experienced in Afghanistan. And who were they defeated by? So you have the proxy wars. Russia, it's a proxy war, Russia and the United States. So who is it that defeated the king of the South?
The United States.
Well, the United States is a proxy war. Who's the proxies that who are doing the fighting?
The Mujahideen.
The Mujahideen are doing the fighting. And that leads to the rise of, Bin Laden leads to the rise and the development of Al Qaeda. Okay, any comments?
Yeah, it's wonderful study. The three powers that I know we didn't mention it. The three powers that Papal Rome took down before they could become the supreme power at 538. Those are the three that you wrote down: the Alaric, the Vandals, the Visigoth, and the Hieroglyph. But it's interesting that it was three. The four that took down was also the Huns. Huns was one of them that took down pagan Rome. But they were not the ones that Papal Rome took down. And come to find out, the Huns are now Russia. And I thought that was just that was interesting.
Yeah,
that the Huns, the ancient Huns, are now the modern Russia, which is the king of the South.
Yes.
So the king of the North back then were not able to, for whatever reason, unable to take down. Well, they weren't king of the South then, but they're the king of the South now. So had they been taken down then, the Huns, they may not be the Russia of today, the king of the South. It's just interesting.
I forgot that that's where they were located at. Which one was Africa? One of them was Africa. I don't remember where they were, each one were at. Well, that's a start or a continuation. Susan, is it starting to kind of meld into the mind a little bit?
Every time we go over it, I get something, but there is so much, and I don't have time just to focus only on this one, right? This study. So I really appreciate your efforts and all the work you put into it, because there's so many areas that we have to study, So it's challenging, but I wouldn't, I love the challenge. And yes, every time you do it, I get something. So thank you.
thing that keeps rattling on my mind is that Daniel 11:40 to 45, verse 40 in the history of the Millerite history, recognizing now that Josiah Litch was correct about the king of the north and the king of the south and the hymn. Anyways, at the very least, Islam is embedded in Daniel 11 verse 40 in that history. Is that correct?
So you mean, even though we don't see it directly, it's there? Is that what you mean?
Well,
It's like a
we do
hidden-
know,
Yeah.
we can look at that history and know that the king of the north was Turkey, which is the Ottoman Empire, and the king of the south,
Yes.
Egypt, was a vassal in the Ottoman Empire. So we
Yeah,
can
so that,
see, go ahead.
yeah, that's what Elder Parminder was emphasizing, that we look at 1140, Daniel 1140 through the players there. Our focus is the king of the north and king of the south, where Josiah Litch, his focus was not on king of the north and king of the south per se, but it was through the works of Islam. That's where Josiah, according to Elder Parminder, that's what Josiah Litch's focus was on, is Islam.
And as you trace that line, and it doesn't even go out to 1865, here's some of the thoughts that I have, questions that I have. Because you could place Islam at the time of the end, and you can go back the years before and see what was all leading up to, and you can place Islam, trace Islam throughout this line. So who is the third woe?
Well, it has to be Islam.
We know it's Islam, radical Islam. And so let's say Christ came back in 1865, 63. You have a restraint here, but wouldn't Islam have to have risen up again to finish the job of the third woe?
Had to kill.
Yes.
But we know that the sixth trumpet ends in 1840.
So
and then
you're saying death and resurrection in a sense for Islam too?
I hadn't thought about it that way, but it definitely has to come back if it was going to finish its job by in 1863. It would have been 1861, because 1861 was the close of probation, and it would come in whatever that defeat looks like. But instead, we know that Jesus didn't come back. We cut that line and begin a time at the end when you see the king of the north and the king of the south fighting. And you see, we can trace Islam throughout their history, and we can trace Islam throughout our history. So there's,
So-
go ahead.
I have a question. So between Elder Pippinger and Josiah Litch, the a king and the king, can you clarify that again?
Nope. But, well, I can tell you what I know of, what I remember of it, because I was listening to it this morning, and it's on the one that Susan posted, the danger of the ignorance of 9/11. He goes through it very thoroughly there. That's a whole nother study to break it down, but Josiah Litch in verse 35 or 36 changed the king to a king, or a king to the king. I think it's the king to a king
It was the to
to a.
and the, because his argument was that the is specific.
Definite article.
Could be any
Mhm.
king, and the is specific.
And then Elder Jeff in verse 45, that's a question that's on my mind as well, Gloria, because I can't explain why, but so Elder Jeff takes in the glorious land and changes it for and the glorious land, or vice versa. and to in or in?
Yeah, that's a problem. And also,
Yeah.
there's one other place at the end where the papacy plants his tabernacles in.
Exactly,
Is
that's
that
the
the
word.
one?
That's the word.
Yeah, I still look at that and have a question now too, because that really confused me. The
Well,
changing,
here's,
what's right?
before I lose this thought and we gotta close, here's why that question's on my mind, is looking at this. This church here, the Ottoman Empire comes in and then they go and take this church and desecrate it and make it their own. And they believe they're the religion of the world. Well, I think that's the way, those are my words, okay? Those are my words, because if they're this false religion and they're trying to conquer everything, then they want everyone to be under Islamic Sharia law. And so at the end, verse 45, that question comes to my mind, so I don't know. I don't want to disrupt things that I don't understand. But here's one of the points, is that you have Daniel 11:40 to 45. And verse 41 is the Sunday law. And the Sunday law is what in Revelation? Where's
18.
18, right? So you'd have to overlay Revelation 18 as well with Daniel 11:41. Then you'd also have to take the third woe and overlay that. You'd also have to take Revelation 17 and overlay that, and Revelation 13 and overlay that. Because definitely Islam, we know is what's going to come in and destroy modern Rome. But then another question, because if Islam destroys modern Rome, what happens to Islam? They don't become ruler of the world, right? Then you have the second coming.
Yeah, I believe that touches on Regium in the ships of Alexandria. After the close of probation, there's the two small waymarks of Syracuse and Regium. And Syracuse means you feel really ill. And Regium is where the coins are stamped. But Puteoli is the smell of sulfur, like fire. And it's mineral wells. I know she marks that as the second coming, but you can see Islam's work in those symbols there because it's going, anyway.
They're definitely in that history.
Yeah, and you can see it in the symbols when you look at the meaning of those symbols and what we already know happens at the close of probation. So they'll be burned. I'm thinking at the second coming, right? All those that are alive at the second coming aren't going, unless you're with God, right?
Whatever it looks like. I don't know what it looks like, but definitely the second coming. So you have that history from the Sunday law. So there's two directions I know I want to go to, and I don't know, I just got to remember which one and which one I prepare for, whatever, but to go to next. And one of them is the going through the making of ISIS. There was just a Wikipedia PowerPoint that I put together that we can do. And then the other one is Testimonies to the Church, Volume 9, that solidify 9/11 as the harbinger of the close of probation. And that you'll find in a lot of good detail in that one damaging ignorance of 9/11, something like that.
Yeah, I'm also, we're going over, but I'm also wondering, like on the third woe, because you hear the word infatata and also jihad. And an infatata means to shake up, like an uprising. I know, and I was thinking, because we're seeing all this uprising with Hamas and all of this, we're seeing that pre-Sunday law. It's part, I'm thinking it might be part of the shaking pre-Sunday law, the agitation.
I would think based on everything we've been looking at and that's a whole nother story, is looking at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and that article.
I'm gonna go into that when I begin the.
Okay, good. Because that has to be, in my understanding, I could be wrong, but that is what is a catalyst, is that a word? Or what is working towards the development of the
Yes,
caliphate?
yes. And it's so funny because I was always wanting to understand Castor and Pollux, because yes, I know it's an apispal god, but there's so much deepness to that symbol, and that symbol is put in there for a reason, right? And so that what took me to go back to Alexander the Great and Hellenism, which then took me to Alexandria, right? Which then took me to the ships of Alexandria, which also brings in Israel and Zionism and Christian nationalism, and our civil religion in the United States is known as Judeo-Christian. And I began to see the symbol of Judeo-Christianity in Castor and Pollux. Anyway, it's heavy, everything that, and I never had any clue that was where it was going to go. And I can now trace 2014 with things with Jerusalem, right? There's a lot of things with the Gaza war and a Jerusalem uprising, and what your letter was about from Osama bin Laden and why he was so upset with the United States that he attacked on 9/11 had to do with our relations and support of Israel. It's really a tightly, you know what I mean? It's complex.
They're all connected. They're all overlaid on top of each other.
Yes.
Do you want to
I'm
close?
going to add more detail with mine, but I'm hoping with all of us we can iron it all out.
Yeah.
Together.
Do you want to close this in prayer, Susan?
Oh, sure. Okay. Oh, dear Heavenly Lord, we thank you so much, Lord, for the light, for the details, for the understanding that we've been given, Lord. No other people on earth are given such insights as we are, Lord. But we struggle with our humanity, Lord, and our ability to remember all the details and keep them straight. But we thank you that you've given us the waymarks and the leadership that continues to guide and keep us, Lord, from going too far to the right or too far to the left. And continue, Lord, to work with each one of us so that we can retain the information necessary to perform our job function, Lord. And help us all in this teaching, Lord. We so want to have your eyes shine down on us with happiness as we grow together and as we grow in understanding, Lord. And we want to bring glory to you. So thank you for Elaine's big task of studying this deep information, Lord, and for everyone's input. It helps so much. And thank you for keeping us all safe, for calming the weather, and continue to bless us in our homes, Lord, and bring us back together when we gather again on Friday. Thank you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
One quick note on what's on the other side before we end here.
So Elaine, do you just review Islam on Wednesday nights, or do you do Fridays too?
I've done it a couple of different nights, just been kind of
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, this is good. Thank you. Yeah.
I was
It
just
is,
thinking about that.
Elaine, it's excellent what you're doing for us.
I was just thinking about that Wahhabi Ottoman War, or Wahhabi Saudi War. If we remember when George Bush invaded, back it up. When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, that bin Laden went to the Saudi government, and this is after the Afghanistan war. Bin Laden goes to the Saudi government and wants to take the Mujahideen to go defeat Saddam Hussein, get him out of Kuwait. And the Saudi government rejected his offer and instead brought the United States in, which is one of the catalysts that angered bin Laden to bring the U.S. boots on the ground in their land. And then bin Laden went to actually war against the Saudi government, and there were terrorist attacks by Al Qaeda in Saudi Arabia. So that could be that, but I'm not sure. And then one last thing, just to note, Christine posted, was 9/11 necessary? She got it from probably a different place than I get mine from, just to note in case anybody finds confusion, because I actually said it was number 68. It is number 68 when you're on the Personal is Political YouTube channel, where they have all of them in one playlist. And I think the playlist that she pulled it from is the playlist that just has Elder Parminder and maybe Elder Test separate. So that's why it's either 51 or 90 or 68.